there's a difference, John, between a problem and a fact of life. He said, John, a problem you can fix. A fact of life is out of your control.
Hi, I'm Chris Godey. I don't know about you, but I know that I love to absorb content. There's so much free content out there. However, one challenge that I do have is that I often struggle to then take that content and put it into practice. I don't change the habits that I need to based off of the video that I've been inspired by. If that's you, I want you to watch this video, and then I would love for you to comment, and we would love to hear your thoughts below.
I mean, people say, why are you still in the game? There's only one reason I'm in the game. What I'm doing is changing lives and helping people. Why would I get out of the game? You know, I mean, but you know, if my game was golf, I'd get out of the game. But my game isn't. And so I love what I do, but I also love the people I do it with. And I always say that if you have the two loves, if you love people, in fact, I tell leaders, when you stop loving people, you really need to stop leading them, because then you start taking advantage of them. You get an edge on it you don't want. So I love people, and I love what happens when people learn what I know, and that is leadership. And it's just joy. I honestly could say I've never worked a day in my life. I mean, I woke up and I thought about us doing this today, and I just got a big smile on my face. I got to be with Dan. I get to be on the podcast. We get to talk about things that are going to help people. And here I am. And this isn't work. This is joy. And I think that I'm very fortunate. I don't think everybody has that, but I think I'm very fortunate and very blessed to have found something that helps people that I love so much. And so that's where, I mean, consistency is not hard. I mean, once you find something like that, you just keep one. Consistency is not hard. Getting better is hard. So I'm not just I'm not talking about repetition, consistency, like every day. No, I'm talking about every day, but every day there's improvement, every day there's growth, every day there's change that happens in a person's life. So I'm very consistent in leadership, but I'm very growth-oriented in every day I have to get better at it, because the only guarantee anybody's future is going to be good is that they're growing right now. I mean, there's no guarantee that tomorrow could ever be better if I'm not still growing and developing myself today. So there is a consistency of, I've done leadership, but I do leadership much better today than I did 50 years ago. You know what? In fact, I look back at some of my early books and I thought, you know, can I get? In fact, sometimes I go to the publisher and I say, can I buy that book out? You know what I mean? Because I've learned so much more now. I look and I think, oh, that wasn't near as good as it could have been or should have been. So there is a consistency as far as I've done it a long time, but I tell people you could do something a long time, and people are saying they're very consistent, but that doesn't mean that you're really helping people. You've got to constantly grow. So I continue to do it, but I continue to do it better. And I am in love with better. I'm in love with growing.
When I think about my journey on that topic of where I started and where I am today, same, embarrassed. Some of the ways I acted, some of the things.
Totally. My gosh.
When you look back on your journey, John, what are kind of like 3 moments that, like, who did you need to become to be the John Maxwell I'm sitting here with today from where you started?
Well, you know, it's such a good question. And really, I feel the same way. I tell people if they would have seen me in the beginning, they would all be greatly encouraged. Because they really would be. My first book wasn't good. I mean, it just really wasn't good. It was my first book, but you're never good the first time. You know, in fact, you're usually not too out the second time either. You know, but why do I keep doing it? Because I may not be good the first time or the second time, but I do want to be good sometime. And you're only going to be good sometime if you're working at it and you're practicing. Once I have established that relationship of unconditional love, I've done that with my kids. My kids know. My kids haven't made every decision I would approve of. And I tell them, I said, unconditional love doesn't mean I approve of everything. It just means that whatever you do, I love you unconditionally. And so once they have that environment of unconditional love around them, then absolutely I can give my opinion. And by the way, unconditional love lets them give their opinion too, even though they know that it isn't going to be what mine is. And so the miss is this. When we love the issue more than we love the person, we're in trouble. I don't love any issue. There's no issue I don't love more than the person themselves. And once I establish I love you because I love you, period, because God created you, in the story. Now, we can work on issues all the time. And by the way, we will work on issues all the time because I'm safe to you. And a safe environment is essential. My mother unconditionally loved each one of us as children. She was so safe. I mean, when I got into trouble as a kid, I went to my mom. I mean, you don't usually go to a parent. You go to a friend and say, oh, dear, I screwed up. No, I go to mom because I knew mom loved me unconditionally. And that creates a safe environment. Then, once you have that safe environment to live in, now start leading, lay out what you think, and it gets better. But you got to love the person more than the issue.
Oh my gosh, guys, I would write that word safety down. It's one of the words leaders don't emphasize, don't think about, don't focus. And I think it's the fundamental that you create a safe environment. By the way, sometimes it's a little thing, like some of you guys that used to show up on time when you were younger, and as the company got bigger and you've made more money, now you show up later and later. That creates a lack. There's little things that your presence, your love, your belief, your structure, your equipping create safety. That's the underlying message that's being sent, is we're safe here. And then you can explode and do anything you want from a safe place. Okay, so last question. This is just about you, because I want to ask you stuff. Do you care about your own legacy as a leader? And if you do, what do you want it to be?
Wow. Well, yeah, I care about what I value. Jack Welch and I had a conversation before he passed away that was life-changing to me. He said to me something that I had never thought before, and it was kind of like, oh, this is going to help me. Of course, he was CEO for many years of General Electric. He said, John, don't put your legacy in an organization. Put it in people. He said organizations over time, they just change. They different people lead them for different reasons and different agendas. But he said, put it in people. In fact, that was probably the motivating talk that got me started with my coaching company, which we have the largest coaching company in the world. Is I said I want to develop coaches that I could put my legacy into. But so when people ask me about what I want my legacy, I want my legacy to be two things. I want people that knew me. I would, when I say my name is John, I'm your friend, that probably should go on my tombstone.
Yes.
My name's John. I'm your friend. It's that simple. It's this. I'm not complicated. I'm a very simple person anyway. The second thing I want is that in this life, I added value to leaders who multiplied value to others. I want my legacy to be in the leadership lane because multiplication begins there. If you can change a leader, you can change people's massive amount of people. But so it's in the heart. It's in my heart, and it's in the heart of my people. And I honestly think that when I die, I'll never die, to be honest with you. I think that the principle and the truth will still live, and those values will still go on. But as far as John Maxwell, the person, I'm not interested in that at all. I have no desire to have museums or anything like that. None of that stuff. I want it to be in the values of the heart. I want it to. That's where transformation starts in caring for people. That keeps a leader's motives pure and right. If you and I are constantly saying, well, what's best for my people? Because whatever is best for my people as a leader, I should be doing my very best to provide it for them. But this is a terrific lesson on the fact that in adversity, if we have the right perspective, and this is a lesson on perspective, trust me. In fact, today and tomorrow, this is a part one, tomorrow's part two. This is a perspective lesson. What I want you to catch, though, is that without any question, the adversity that you and I are going through right now does have distinct advantages for us. That I know. You say, John, how do you know that? Well, it's very simple. Every crisis and every adversity in the history of the world has turned into terrific advantage for society. Again, I remember I mentioned yesterday, every medicine you take was because there was an adversity, a problem. Somebody had something that needed to be cured, so somebody went and invented a medicine. In other words, good things come out of bad things if you have the right perspective. If you have the wrong perspective, that's not true. So this lesson is on how do I take the adversity and gain some advantage out of it for myself, for my family, for my community, for others. And when I go to perspective, here's the quote: how we view things is how we do things. So it's possible for two people to view adversity and have two different responses to that adversity. One takes adversity and turns it into an advantage, and the other one takes adversity and says, oh, I'm at a disadvantage, and I'm a victim, and they just basically lay down, and instead of getting better, they get worse. Same adversity, same situation, two total different responses. Now, the responses are based upon a person's perspective. Let me give you an example. Albert Einstein, here was a brilliant fellow. Albert Einstein said this: in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Now, I've loved that statement for quite some time, and I share it with you because I think there's something very interesting in what Albert Einstein said. He said it was in the middle. In the middle. In fact, when I put that quote in here, I capitalized all the letters on middle. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. You know what Einstein was saying? He's saying you have got to get into the crisis. You have got to get into the middle of the problem before you see how to get opportunity out of it. Because at the beginning, we don't understand how deep the problem's going to be. It doesn't affect us enough to take away our options so that all of a sudden we get desperate for an answer. It's not at the end. If by the end we haven't seen opportunity, to be honest with you, we just passed it. The door was back in the middle. But in the middle of difficulty, adversity, crisis, that's where Albert Einstein said, that's where we find opportunity. It's that type of thinking, perspective for you and me that I want to talk about because trust me on this, if we have the right perspective, we're going to find that to be very true.
And what I found is the moment you add value to people and they look at you and they say, my life is better because of you, that is your most important moment in helping develop leadership relationships with people. And I've spent my life specifically helping people get better. I had a lady the other day come to me and said, I know why you're successful. I said, oh, good, tell me why. She said, you're very successful helping people become very successful. I said, yeah, I do that. That's what I do. I help people get better. And when you help people get better, they're yours for life. Not yours for life like slaves. They're yours for life as far as connection and relationship. And when people say, well, how do your book sell so well? Well, it's a John Maxwell book. And John Maxwell helps people. And he adds value to people. Oh, there's a title. Well, what's the title? It doesn't matter. It's a John Maxwell book. And so that the ability to find these 5 lanes. Then when you get a lane, obviously you could add more lanes to it. But so in leadership, I'd probably have about a 12-lane freeway in leadership. In some things it would be less lanes. But I tell people, you pick a lane and get it, and then you add another lane, and after a while you can move a lot of stuff down the road. So that would be the second catalyst, and then the third one was I really worked hard getting around great people. We hear the phrase "who luck," which is who you know is important. I realized very early that I needed to get around great people. So I did everything in my power to meet people that were bigger than me, better than me, faster than me, smarter than me. I have an expression that says, if you're the head of the class, you're in the wrong class. I have never been in the head of the class in any area. I still am not. If I'm at the head of the class, I get out of that class so quick, because if you're at the head of the class, all you're doing is talking to people about what you do, and you're not growing. And so that's why I like to be around people like you. And that's why I ask questions. I ask questions because you know things I don't know. And I'm not going to find out until I ask you questions. And I've never lost that appetite to be around people bigger, better, and faster than me. I'm uncomfortable when I'm the head of the class. I'm not uncomfortable leading anything, but I'm very uncomfortable when I look around and I say, wow, I think I know more than the rest of them, because at that moment, how are you going to learn more? And so I have been very passionate about jumping the fence, going anywhere I have to go to meet people and ask them questions, because I have this, when I'm with somebody and I don't get to ask them questions, I walk away and I think there was something they know that I don't know, and I didn't get any time with them to ask them the question, so I still don't know it. And that is very, every day I think, wow, I could have learned more if I could have just had a little more time with somebody and asked them questions and sat at their feet and take notes and applied it to my life. So I think those three things, as I look back at it, Dan, that's where I am today. That's how I got to where I am today. And they've never changed. It's again, back to consistency compounds. Every month I still have a learning lunch where I take somebody bigger, better, and faster than me. It's my favorite thing every month. And I buy their lunch. I don't even eat. I just got a list of 7 questions, and I ask them the 7 questions. And it's just, when I'm done, I look at them and I think, you have deposited stuff in me that's going to have a return.
Oh, really?
And one day, I made a decision he didn't like. And he said, how could you make that decision after all I've done for you? And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, Arnold keeps score. I didn't know that. I thought we had a relationship that didn't keep score. And then what happens? I'm in the hole. Of course he's done a lot for me. So now I can't catch up. And it becomes a thing of, okay, he did this for me. I did this for me. So I think keeping score is great for games. I think it's terrible for life. I don't keep score with Margaret. I don't keep score. And the reason I don't keep score is what kind of a marriage is it? So I said, Margaret, let me explain something. Do you remember 2 weeks ago when you did that? And because you did that, over here, that isn't a marriage. Now, why don't we just get a table and have a negotiating time here? There's no love there. There's no care there. There's no compromise there. There's no, oops, I'm sorry, I can be patient here. And so therefore, I think that keeping score makes us transactional when we should be transformational. And there's a world there between a transactional person who is always looking for the edge. I got to win here. And by the way, let me tell you something. I don't even like to win to have the other person lose. If I can't win with the other person winning, where's the joy of, I did a good deal and they're going to lose a couple million, but I'm going to get that. And and by the way, if you come to the table and you lose once and I say, come back to the table, you don't want to come back to the table. Why would you come back to the table with me? Because all you have is the fact that the last time I took from you. And so I think high road leaders, they want more for their people than from their people. And I think there's a big difference from that. And if I can't help the other person win, honestly, I'm not interested in the game. I'm not, because my goal isn't to win. My goal, who wants to cross the finish line alone? I want to cross the finish line with you, Ed. I want to cross everybody on your podcast. I want you to be at the finish line with me. Why? I don't want you to be in the stands cheering. I don't need cheerleaders. I want you to be in the game with us, and let's cross it together. And I just think that it is a very fulfilling, significant life when you don't have to always win, and when you say, no, I think it's their turn. I think I want them to get a win under their belt right now, and there's something very beautiful about that spirit, and of course because I'm a Christ follower again, there are. Oh my gosh, there are dozens of Jesus illustrations I can say where he didn't win. He didn't have to fight for himself, didn't have to jump up and down and say, no, I'm right. Don't you know who I am? I am the Son of God. Excuse me. This is not even territory here. No, he had the ability to love unconditionally and sometimes walk away. And I think it's very important. When people come to me, I want them to say, he adds value to me, not
I wonder what he wants from me.
Wow.
I
Yet
don't like that.
Yet at the same time in the book, you do talk about being conscious. A high road leader will give more
Yes.
than they take.
Yes.
They'll give
Yeah,
more
now here's
than
the
they take.
difference. I don't keep score, but I do keep track.
If you have the privilege of leading a team or an organization, and you would love help with enhancing your leadership culture, maybe even developing some of your high potential leaders, just follow the link on the screen, and we would love to connect with you.
And whatever is bad, I started to say, I make it better, I make it worse. And that's why you don't want to have a negative life stance. You want to have a positive life stance, which goes to the summation of all of it. Statement number 6, therefore, I choose a positive life stance. One of my early mentors in my 30s basically said that there's a difference, John, between a problem and a fact of life. He said, John, a problem you can fix. A fact of life is out of your control. The crisis, to be honest with you, is a fact of life. It's out of our control. Now, we're absolutely trying to do things such as social distancing and good things that will help contain it and then slow it down and stop it. And we're wanting to get through this process. But there are certain things that are facts of life, and we basically can't control them. That's just what they are. But there are the things that we can control. And what I want us to hear very clearly is this. Just because we're in a bad situation doesn't mean that it has to be all bad. One of the greatest leaders, I think, of the last century was Nelson Mandela. And I had the privilege of being in South Africa several times. And on my last visit, they asked me if I wanted to have a private tour over to Robben Island where he was imprisoned. I said yes. The condition was that they could bring a reporter with me, interview me, and publish what my thoughts were. When we got to the island, everything was closed down that day, and I just met, when we got there, one of the fellow prisoners of Nelson Mandela, and he gave us the private tour. And I'll never forget, he shared with us all of the difficulties of being in prison, and how Nelson Mandela, when he came, they take away your name. And they just call you a number from that time. You lose your name. And I went into the prison cell, which was only about 8 by 10, where Nelson Mandela was there. He just had a mat on the floor and just a window maybe this wide with just the bars. And he looked out into a prison yard. And there was nothing good about that cell. He worked in a rock quarry in limestone and constantly had hard labor. And as they showed me all these things, in fact, when I when I came out of his prison cell, the reporter asked me, he said, John, what are you thinking? And I looked at her, I'll never forget, I looked at her and I said, I spent 10 minutes in this prison cell by myself where Nelson Mandela spent years. And I looked at her and I said, you cannot imprison greatness. They could put Nelson Mandela in a prison cell, but they couldn't stop his incredible, beautiful thinking of what could be and what should be. They couldn't hide his dreams from him or hold his dreams away from him. And so here's what I said. At the end of that day, as I was on the boat going back to the mainland off of Robben Island, I wrote these things on lessons learned from Nelson Mandela. Number 1, our surroundings need not control our spirit. He never allowed where he was to control how he would think. Secondly, people who devalue us don't determine our value. They may take away his name and give him a number, but he didn't take away his name. He didn't give himself a number. Number 3, dreams can be birthed in the daily grind. In fact, it was in that limestone area, there was a cave that to be honest with you, the soldiers wouldn't even go in. It's where people went in to do their business. And that's where Nelson Mandela met with about 6 people every day on the inside because the guards wouldn't come. And they would talk about the dreams of taking South Africa and ridding it of apartheid. And it was an incredible story, but it was birthed out of a terrible place. And finally, in our brokenness, out of our brokenness, we can be made whole again and bring healing to others.
And there's something beautiful about people who know you, know your weaknesses, your strengths, your humanness, and that they love you, and they believe in you and they help you and they support you. And we've laughed about that a lot. But I think it's very true that your inner circle of the people that are closest to you, they see your highest moments, but they also see your lowest. They see the win, but they also see the valley when you're going through some very difficult times. And I kind of love having people around me that care for me enough that, we can talk about it and work through it, and I can ask their advice. Last night at the table, I had I had her and I had Aaron, my content curator, and I was just asking them questions to help me become more aware about this, or what am I missing? And I find that they're huge assets, because I really am not sure a person is self-aware. I think the self-awareness I have is because somebody came into my life that cared for me enough to deal with the blind spots for me. I think my self-awareness mainly is me asking my team to help me with my blind spots and the things that I don't see automatically. And I think we have to give permission to people to do that. I think people will not share honestly with you unless you really want to hear from them. And I'm 77. I look at my team all the time and say, now look, if you see me starting to slip, you raise your hand. Because my observation is people stay too long. Look at athletes that, they play 2 or 3 years after they hit their peak, and I don't want to do that. And I think people stay too long because they don't have somebody tell them that they're staying too long. And I want people around me to talk to me and be open and honest with me, because I want to do it right and I want to do it well, but I don't want to start sliding and I just think that they can help me in that area. I want them to help me because I need it.
I don't want to be personal, but he says, hey, give me a topic you want to talk, and he pulls his laptop. He's got 600 talks. Like 600. Is that the right number? It was hundreds. I remember.
Yes.
Right on his laptop. I'm like, Mike,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, pick up.
Only old people can do that. Only old people. Takes a lot of time.
Well, also that he would share it. Yeah. John shares. He wants to add value. He's not afraid to tell you a lot of leaders won't say I need you because they think that you'll take advantage of it. That's how they think. Or if I share with you what I'm doing, then you'll do it better than me. And John literally said to me, he goes, I share this stuff with you, Ed, because you'll take it and you'll make it better.
Yes, that's right.
And that's about adding value.
That's huge. What's really huge? Am I in this for me, or am I in this for people? If I'm in this for people, I want the best product for the people. So when I give you something I have done, Ed, you're going to make it better, because you have gifts that I don't have. You have experiences I don't have. You have stories I don't have. You have perspectives I don't have. So what is beautiful is when you give something to somebody, like a talk or whatever, and say, it's yours. Their foundation doesn't start there. It starts up here because you've already raised the level. But then what happens, Ed? You keep growing. So to me, anything I have, you can have. Because what you take, and when you give it, whether it's in a book or in a talk, it'll be better than I ever gave it, because I was the first. A pioneer knows they go break ground. But they also know the people who come behind them will do better. And they want them to do better. What kind of a pioneer would I be if I went out and found the land and came back and blocked it off and didn't want anybody else to find the land and just kind of held it for myself? Now, that's a kind of a small world. But you're exactly right. I do genuinely want people to take what I have and make it better. And it's theirs. It's okay. It's okay.
And guys, by the way, because I'm such a fan of his work, everything he's saying is in the book. So the last chapter, desire the best for others. Right? That's exactly what he's doing when he does these. He lives these things. Okay, couple more things. This is one of the most remarkable, because we freelance this today, guys, just so you know, because we have this thing where we know, Holy Spirit's present, and just it goes crazy when you and I visit. There's one thing you have in there that I was surprised was in there, but I'm glad that it is. And that is that high road leaders don't keep score.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about that, because there's other playbook where people go, I'm putting that chip on my shoulder and I'm going to use that somehow as leverage to some extent, but I want you to talk about that.
Well, I think of all the things in that book, I think that's the most interesting chapter.
because I think a lot of people are transactional and they keep score. And somebody said, where did you learn that? Well, I learned that because I had somebody that I looked up to keep score on me.
If you're like me, you watch a video like that from Maxwell Leadership and you just get inspired. I love how it's so practical. It just makes a lot of sense. But here's the challenge. We have to commit to each other. We have to commit to change, both in our personal lives and also our professional lives. Looking for more information about the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team? Follow the link below to learn more. We can't wait to hear from you and add value to your lives.